Hello everyone and welcome to our webinar, this exclusive product initiative. I'm delighted to be able to bring to you today. We'll be getting right into the meat of this presentation in just a minute and explaining a bit more detail about exactly what that is. But to begin with, just to introduce myself, I'm Stuart Wilson, I'm the B2B Marketing Director, and I'll be hosting the session today, but we've got some subject matter experts and some guests that I'm going to introduce to you in just a moment that are going to explain more about this fantastic product initiative, and we'll come to that in just a second. Before we get on to that though, a little bit of housekeeping. For those of you that haven't joined us for a webinar before, if it's been some time, you'll be looking at this webinar through our Workcast platform, and you'll be seeing something like this. There's a window, a media window, that will be displaying all of the slides that you're seeing on the screen. You can move that around or resize that as you wish. You will also find on your dashboard a Q&A window which you can use to interact with us. Now, we will be having a Q&A session at the end of the program, so we won't be interrupting the speakers or our guests during the program for questions, but that doesn't mean you have to wait until the end to ask your questions. You can ask those questions at any time. Just type the questions into the box, click submit, and they will appear at an inbox at my end, and I'll be addressing any questions with our guests at the end of the show, which will be in about 30 minutes or so, give or take. Now, at More to Life, we are one of the largest lenders in the equity release marketplace, and you know that we are always on your side. We've got your back on your mission to provide ever better outcomes for customers in retirement. And we do that through a number of ways, including providing the best cutting edge technology and support for advisors, and of course by providing the widest range of lifetime mortgages. And as one of the biggest lenders in this market, that means that we are constantly looking at ways in which we can improve and extend our lifetime mortgage offering so that it gives you as advisors the opportunity to provide solutions to even more of your clients. So with that in mind, I want to introduce the latest initiative from More to Life. It's a unique collaboration with the London Rebuilding Society and ourselves, and of course the equity release experts as well. It's called Healthy Homes, Healthy Lives, and it's, as I say, an exclusive collaboration for customers aged 55 plus who need to carry out repairs, or those that would like to see much needed home improvements and perhaps are not able to access standard borrowing. But to help me explain that new initiative and to give more background to London Rebuilding Society and of course the Healthy Homes, Healthy Lives initiative, I'd like to welcome the first of my special guests here today. I'd like to introduce Naomi Kingsley. So welcome to the webinar, Naomi. It's great to have you here. I wonder if we could start, before I get into some of the questions I'd like to put to you, if you could just give a quick overview, a quick introduction to yourself, to the audience listening to the webinar today.
Okay, thank you, Stuart, and thank you, everybody. Just before I start, I want to say I seem to have a little bit of a strange throat, so forgive me if I cough from time to time. I'll do my best not to. So yes, as said, I'm Naomi Kingsley. I'm the founder of London Rebuilding Society and its current chief executive, and have been since 2020. And do you want me to say a little bit more about Healthy Homes, Healthy Lives? Well,
let's get on to this. Thank you, Naomi, and yeah, we'll bear with you on your sore throats and cough.
Thank you.
It just seems to be the season for it. So yeah, let's get into a little bit more about the background to London Rebuilding Society. If you could tell us a bit more about when it was founded and what its core purpose is, please.
Okay, so founded in 2000. That would have been very recent. So we've been going for 22 years, almost exactly. And it was founded as an organisation that would devise ways of providing finance to organisations and individuals where access to finance was difficult to get or impossible in some cases. So to develop better and fairer, more appropriate finance. Currently, our main focus is around the area of housing, and it is therefore, in relation to this product, this is a very key product for us, a key exploration and collaboration, where we are providing access to finance and support, all-round support to homeowners, older homeowners who are living in sometimes difficult conditions or sometimes just struggling to access finance for a whole variety of reasons.
Fantastic. And we, as I mentioned just a moment ago, this new initiative is called Healthy Homes, Healthy Lives. So can you give us a bit more of an explanation about that initiative, please, and how it works?
Sure. It's built on a foundation of a scheme that we've run for a number of years, and in fact, it's why we know our friends at More to Life well, and which is focused on the needs of, as I've said before, older homeowners who are living in homes where there is a level of disrepair and a need for improvement, which means that they can have a longer, more comfortable, happy life. And they have really found it difficult or impossible to access finance either from the public or the private sectors. Healthy Homes, Healthy Lives has evolved from that because we found that there were a number of people that we really need to extend more support to. So for example, if they want to address issues around energy efficiency, so that we can do more retrofit. The program itself is a collaboration. There's a number of us involved, and we're very fortunate to have support from the government's innovation agency.
Fantastic. And that whole energy
UKRI, which you can see here, the logo. Exactly. And our key collaborator with this, obviously, is More to Life, to develop this very specific product, which will enable those who've struggled to access a certain kind of finance, to do a certain kind of work, to be able to get that.
Absolutely. As I was saying, just that whole energy efficiency message is very, very pertinent at the moment, of course, isn't it? It'd be great to understand a little bit more about, and I've just put up a graphic on the screen there, which just sort of underlines what you've just said, Naomi, but it'd be great to understand a little bit more about the types of people that you are typically helping through this initiative. What are the particular issues and problems that your customers are facing?
Well, they're pretty varied. They don't fall into a sort of standard category, and the age range is also very varied. And I can give some examples, and these will be expanded on, I think, later in this webinar. But for example, we get a reasonably large number of people who are single and in their late 50s and 60s, more predominantly women, but not necessarily. And we also get a number of people who are actually families, where you've got parents in their 60s and children still living at home. Or you may have a category of people, for example, one of our clients who was a woman in her 80s living in a home that was in poor condition, but she herself was a very bright and capable person, but there was no way she could access finance. So the range is quite considerable, from someone of, say, 65 who has a house that really needs quite a lot of work, can't get access to finance, right the way through to the working family, to somebody who is, and I mean, the person I talked about just then, the 65-year-old, actually did have a number of vulnerabilities, but some have less. So it's quite a wide range, but they're all in the category of struggling to find a solution so that they can stay at home as long as they like, independently. That's the kind of key thing for us, to live in a warm, comfortable home, adaptable to their changing needs as they age, just to read what's on the screen.
Yes, absolutely. And as you mentioned, Amy, we're going to, when I come on in just a moment to introduce your colleague Neil, we'll touch on some of those case studies in a little bit more detail to bring that to life. But thank you for that. So how do you normally come across these clients? How are you normally introduced to customers that are looking for this type of support?
We have a range of routes that we go through. Clearly, there are the advisors, like the group of people we're now addressing, but then we also work very closely with local authorities and their agencies or their internal organisation itself, which might be social workers, it could be people in environmental health or in housing, it can be people in the NHS, it could be local organisations working with older people. So a very wide range of people that we disseminate information to, talk through the issues with, get them to understand what we're doing so they can identify people who are struggling and they can then refer them to us. So the routes are very wide. And I mean, one of the things that's important about this is that we need to get as much information out as possible, because sometimes these are people who are operating under the radar. The local authority, may know of them through a social worker, but they are struggling to find any solution for them. So it's very important that we have a kind of high profile with those local authorities and with the agencies that are in the area, so that they can think, oh, hang on a second, this person really might benefit from the scheme.
Absolutely. And I guess just picking up on that point, actually, given the often vulnerable nature of some of these individuals, and the fact that, as you mentioned, that they might be, although they might be, social services may be aware of them, but they're sort of underneath the radar to a degree. It must be immensely rewarding to be able to help some of these people back into a safe, comfortable, livable home. So I imagine you've got some fantastic testimonials from some of your very satisfied clients.
We do indeed, and I mean we have fantastic testimonials from the local authorities as well, who've just really loved working with us because they can find a solution for their clients. But I mean, for an example, one of our clients, in fact, one of those that you're going to hear a little bit more about, he was in a situation where he had power of attorney with his cousins, and they commented to us after the scheme had completed that on the vast improvement in his physical and mental health. He was happier and looked after himself much better, and he got much less ill, and his depression was lifted. And those are the kinds of outcomes that we get in terms of people's responses to what happened. I mean, there are so many. I mean, there was somebody who said to us a long time ago, this home was like a prison before. The home improvement scheme has changed my life. I look forward to going home now and I have a future again.
Wow, that is, as you say, quite some testimonial. That's great, Naomi. Thank you very much. I think you managed to get through that really well without coughing. So thank you. If I can relieve you there of that duty and hand over to your colleague, I'd like to bring in Neil McClenaghan. Neil, welcome to the show as well to you. I think we'll do the same again. If you could just briefly introduce yourself and your role at London Rebuilding Society, please.
Well, good afternoon, Stuart, and thank you very much for inviting me onto this webinar. Yes, Neil McClenaghan, Head of Housing, London Rebuilding Society. I basically am a surveyor, and I look after the contracting and the refurbishment of people's homes. I've done this for 10 years with London Rebuilding Society, and while refurbishing homes can be a challenge, and certainly some of these are a challenge, it's extremely rewarding to see the end product and the person back in their home. Absolutely,
as we've just heard from Naomi. And I do want to come on to actually to delve a little bit more into one or two of those case studies. As Naomi said, lots and lots of case studies and testimonials, but we don't have time to go into all of them, but I thought we could pick up on one or two. But before we do that, Naomi described the Healthy Homes, Healthy Lives initiative and the great work that London Rebuilding Society have done with lots of vulnerable clients. So how does this work in practice? What's the process involved? And I'm just going to put up onto the screen a process flow chart from start to finish. But if you could just kind of give us a sense of the journey for a customer that starts with them knocking on your door, ringing you up for help. How does that process work?
Yes. Well, initially, if the client comes directly to us through the local authority network or what at NHS, we assess the client's eligibility for the home improvement. And what that really means is we carry out a detailed feasibility study looking at the need of the client's refurbishments, the need of the house is refurbishments, and we also look at modernization as well as just bringing a house up to decent home standard. We then look at the costs involved in what that would entail. We then produce a very basic draft cost report, and we also carry out, and this is the key to this product, we carry out a post-works evaluation. That means we look at the value of the house as it is in its current state, and we look at the value of the house in its finished state, i.e. its refurbished state. We then look at how much money they could borrow against the end value, the refurbished end value. And that usually allows them to borrow more money than they would if they were borrowing against their current value. So with the loan to value then rising due to the value of post-works valuation, we can then say to them that they possibly can borrow X amount of cash. And if they are happy with that, in principle, we pass them over to the Terrier network or the IFA, whoever is involved, and we ask them to process them through the advice. Once that advice is given, if the client is happy and is, in principle prepared to proceed, we then go back into the house and do a very detailed survey, even a structural survey if required, and we work up a full cost plan, which is specified against the homeowner's requirements, the homeowner's desires, but also whatever is required to put the house back into its best condition. Once that is done, I then employ contractors through a tendering process, and I project manage the works with the contract. I'll come on to what exactly I do with the contractors a little later. But once the house is finished and complete, we move the owner back into the home, and this is usually after temporary accommodation and storage wherever necessary. So we find the accommodation for the client, we find the storage for the client to make sure that everything is complete when they move back in. Once the work is complete, the client can move back in, as I said.
Fantastic. So it's as you just described there, so it really is a complete end-to-end sort of hand-holding process, and one that is facilitated through the finance, which is via the new More to Life plan, the home improvement plan, which I'm going to come on and talk about in just a bit of detail in just a few moments. But before we do that, Neil, and thanks for that explanation of the process, I thought it'd be worth just touching on a couple of those case studies, and Naomi alluded to them earlier, again, just to help to bring this to life. And I think this is one of the ones that that Naomi was referencing just a moment ago. A chap called Ben, living alone with quite a number of issues and health concerns. And this is somebody that you managed to help in terms of turning his cold, damp home into a much more livable space, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the house was in dreadful condition. Not all our clients have dreadful houses. Some of them want just maybe a new kitchen, new bathroom, new wiring, or some plumbing or some redesign, and they can't access finance. But this case, he lived in this house for most of his. I actually got it off his parents. That's right. He lived with his parents, and then he lived in his house on his own. So he was a special client in many ways, and the house therefore had deteriorated with no ongoing maintenance or care. We stripped out that whole area that you can see there. That was the kitchen area. And we rebuilt the back floor, which collapsed because of the drips and drainage from the toilet above, would you believe? Wow. And it was a pretty difficult job. Most of the walls were streaming damp because of the roof was leaking badly and the guttering. And effectively, we had to move Ben out to a safe and secure environment where he stayed in quite a happy frame of mind. His favorite fish and chip shop was just down the road. His favorite kebab shop was just next door, and he was in a safe and completely, adequate accommodation for 3 months. So a lot of these projects, the more difficult ones, do take three to 6 months. Which, so you can imagine the level of dereliction there is. So yeah, this is a shot afterwards. What we noticed when he moved back in, as Naomi said, is that his whole mentality seemed to change. He suddenly was living in this house, which you can see there. That's only one shot. He's got a brand new kitchen, brand new certificate on everything, and this really makes a big difference in these houses. These houses aren't just houses which have had a coat of paint. These are houses that we've renovated, and the extra value that is created by the renovation and the post-works valuation creates a huge amount of equity, extra equity, even after you take into account the loan, because of everything is guaranteed, everything's under warranty, etc. So, as I said, he moved back in and he was delighted. His well-being improved. He engaged more with people. He engaged more with his cousins, and he became a much happier chap. He was mad about electronics, so he actually started piling stuff back in, which is a bit of an issue in terms of electronic equipment and gadgets. But he suddenly became a completely more engaging character. He was a nice chap.
Fantastic. That's a great story. And I want to just touch on this one, Sandra and Fred, slightly different. You said you get a wide variety of clients. Yeah. This one's slightly different, I guess, from Ben. We're dealing now with a couple with 4 grown-up adults, really, their children living with them. So issues with the state of the house, but more probably just as difficult was the overcrowding involved there. So talk us through this case study.
Yeah, this is a Sandra and Fred in Hounslow. You can see the state of the house. I mean, and that was just the outside. We're seeing the inside. Again, these are the more severe cases. So we do, we want to show this. So because the hand-holding service is there if required. If it's not required, then we don't necessarily take it up. It depends on, our assessment of the situation. But Sandra and Fred had lived here with their 4 children since I think she inherited it from her mother, the house. So they were a family where the 2 boys, because there wasn't any spare bedrooms, were sleeping on the couch in the living room. Wow. That was their bedroom. And I couldn't believe it when I went in there and sat in the living room, and I could see 2 sleeping bags on the floor. And I kept thinking, well, and I said, what's this? He said, oh, this is the bedroom for Joey and Peter. And I said, what, you mean they sleep here? He said, yes, because there's no bedrooms upstairs. The downstairs area also was in very poor condition. The kitchen, which you can see there is in the extension at the back, the roof had completely gone, and every time it rained, the water poured through onto the electrics. The house would have been condemned if we hadn't come along, and they would have been made homeless. So yes, quickly they had been looking for and couldn't find any finance that they could raise because, as you can see, the condition of the house. And this is a severe case, but there are many other cases where banks or equity release companies won't entertain funding the works because under normal circumstances, they wouldn't have us, and they wouldn't be able to manage a contractor.
Yeah.
They'd be absolutely, frightened stiff of managing a contractor, particularly when this amount of work needs to be done. So she thought I was a she thought I was a fairy godfather when I turned up and told her we could do it. And the kids were always fighting, and they were grumpy. There was 2 of them were unemployed. It was a real bit of a hellhole in some ways. So we moved them out after we got the finance. We did a valuation of, as you can see, it was a valuation which allowed them to release 190k. It needed it. The postworks value was 650, but actually we had it valued at 750 to 800, because it's a 5-bedroom house in Hounslow now, not a 3-bedroom house. They moved back in, and they were again over the moon. Sandra said, "Every time I come around the corner, I cannot believe that's my house." Leave it.
It's an amazing story. Well, two amazing stories actually, and as you say, both I suppose at the extreme end of the types of clients that you're dealing with, but
yes,
all sorts of issues that you either handhold clients through right from beginning to end, or just facilitate the works and the finance for.
Well, just a bit on that, because I should cover it. Is that yes, we manage all the works. We stand between the owner and the contractor, because we enter into a legal agreement with the owner, and we take all the risk with the contractor. The contractors are employed on a fixed price JTC, that's the standard industry contract, and the fixed price means that once the price is agreed at the beginning, if they go over that, it's down to the contractor to pay the extra. Of course, there's a contingency, but that contingency is ours, and they have to apply to use it. So we protect the client every step of the way. It's part of the hand-holding. But you can imagine there must be clients out there who would love to do the home up, can't get the finance, but also are frightened of using contractors, because contractors, naturally will make savings wherever they can.
Yes, indeed. That's fantastic. 2 great case studies, as you say. Just in terms of, just for the benefit of the audience watching, so just in terms of people that you can help geographically speaking, is this, what regions of the UK are you currently covering with this scheme?
Well, due to Innovate requirements for our grant, they wanted to identify regions. So we're starting in the southeast, and that covers Essex and places like that. So the southeast is our predominant location at the moment. However, we are happy to consider looking at cases outside the area in the big conurbations. We're totally capable of arranging our service in the Midlands or the north of England, and through our contacts, and also through the local authority network of contractors. So all the contractors that we would use outside the area that we're currently in would be recommended by the local authority and have all the qualifications required to pass the tender. In terms of project management, I'm certainly capable of looking after a number of projects outside the area, as will replace me in London when the scheme's finished.
Fantastic. And just one final question, Neil, before I move on to the details of the plan itself from More to Life. If there's any advisors watching this webinar right now, they've heard what you and Naomi have to say. It's triggered something in their minds about maybe a client that they thought they couldn't help, but maybe applicable for this scheme. What should they do next? So what's the first step?
Give us a call.
Right. Fantastic. As easy as that.
Yeah,
So
give us a call and let's look at the client as we've done it before. We look at the client's details and the IFA can arrange a visit and we'll kick off our initial feasibility work.
Fantastic. Well, I'm sure there are lots of questions that are already building based on that information. So thank you, Naomi. Thank you, Neil. For the moment, we'll come back to any questions from our audience that either yourself, Neil, or Naomi can answer in just a few moments. But before we do that, I thought what would be helpful is to give a little bit more detail now about the finance that sits behind this plan, which is the Home Improvement Plan. It's an exclusive white labelled product from More to Life just for the London Rebuilding Society clients and the Healthy Homes, Healthy Lives initiative. Now, the Home Improvement Plan is based on the ever popular More to Life Capital Choice Plan. And in many respects, the plan is very, very similar to Capital Choice, obviously the same funder that's sitting behind that plan, and many of the same types of features and benefits, although there are some subtle differences. There are three product options. Obviously, there are more in the full Capital Choice Plan range, but in the Home Improvement Plan, there are three options: Superlight, Plus, and Max. And I've put up there on the screen on this slide here the minimums, the maximums, and various restrictions and LTVs of the products. So I'll leave that up there just for a few moments. Won't go through that in huge amounts of detail. You can read that there for yourself, but you'll notice, those of you very familiar with Capital Choice, you'll notice some of the subtle differences between that and the Home Improvement Plan. But the product offers LTVs from as low as 16% right the way up to 55%, and age range up to 95, slightly different from Max. That's up to just before the 85th birthday of the client, and loan ranges up to £500,000. Now, there are some other slight differences in the lending criteria. Those details will obviously all be contained in the product information, lending criteria documents that will come along with the Home Improvement Plan. And this product is at the moment aimed at those properties in London, South East and Brighton. But other than that, very much similar to the Capital Choice Plan and the way that works. This includes some of the benefits that are automatically included in the plan. Now, again, these differ very slightly from Capital Choice lump sum plan. Remember, the Home Improvement Plan is just a lump sum plan, it doesn't have a drawdown facility. But it does come with these three product features which are automatically included. Of course, they come at no extra cost to the client. They don't have to tick a box. These are automatically included with the plan. That includes, as well as obviously fixed early repayment charges, as you saw on the previous screen, an early repayment charge exemption in the event of the death of the first borrower. So for joint life cases where the first borrower dies or goes into long-term care, the remaining borrower can repay the loan in full within 3 years of that event without incurring an early repayment charge should one have ordinarily been payable. It also comes with downsizing protection, a fantastic feature in this market now and available on many products. This gives real peace of mind to customers who perhaps worry about the future and if they need to move home, whether they will be able to port their loan or not. Obviously, it's a guarantee with equity release plans that you can port your loan, but only if the new home is within the lender's criteria. Now, what downsizing protection does is guarantee that even if the property is outside of criteria, after a period of 5 years, if the client needs to move home and they can't take their mortgage with them because the new property doesn't meet criteria, they can repay the loan without incurring any early repayment charges. And finally, partial capital repayments. Obviously, this isn't going to be something that will apply to every client in every situation, but the Home Improvement Plan, just like Capital Choice, comes with the ability from day one to make voluntary capital repayments, free of early repayment charges, up to a maximum of 10% of the initial loan each non-overlapping 12-month period from day one. And we know now, of course, that this is a standard of the Equity Release Council, one of the new standards that they've introduced for products, which means all products now must offer this type of feature as standard in order to qualify as an equity release plan. So it's a fantastic feature, something that lots of clients take advantage of to help manage their debt. Obviously, as I said, not something that is going to apply or appeal to every single client, but it's great to have that flexibility in the plan. And all of those features, I think you'll agree, give fantastic flexibility for clients looking to manage their loan, giving them peace of mind that if situations change or their financial situation changes and evolves throughout their retirement, they've got the ability to make amendments to their loan. Just to summarize before we go into the Q&A, the Healthy Homes, Healthy Lives proposition is a fantastic solution for those clients whose homes are in need of modernising and repair. As Neil has just outlined, obviously that in some instances that will involve clients in situations that are quite extreme, homes that are falling down, people that are in very, very dire straits, but it's not always that extreme, and there will be clients for whom it's just a case of they are finding it difficult to raise funding otherwise in order to get the repairs or the renovations that they need doing. So those extreme examples we've shown you are really good examples of how London Rebuild Society have helped customers. But if you've got any clients in mind for whom a standard lifetime mortgage was just unachievable, London Rebuilding Society may be able to help. So for those clients that are otherwise struggling to raise finance, this is a potential solution and a fully supported process where necessary. As you've heard Neil describe, there a full hand-holding process right from beginning to end where the client needs it, including project managing, dealing with contractors, even sorting out accommodation and storage where necessary. So for those clients who are really at the very vulnerable end of the spectrum, everything is taken care of, and as you saw through those case studies, that makes for a great deal of peace of mind on behalf of those customers. And all of those works financed by the new Home Improvement Plan, a plan exclusive to the London Rebuilding Society and the Healthy Homes, Healthy Lives initiatives. Now, all of the advice for this product and for this initiative is being done by Chris Cage of the Equity Release Experts. So any referrals for this process will be made through Chris for the advice element. And it's at this stage that I'd like to actually invite Chris to join us in just a second. But thank you for listening. I hope that's been helpful and useful and given you a better understanding of this new initiative. But I'm sure there are lots of questions. I can see one or two already popping in to the inbox. I'm sure there are more being typed as we speak. So I'd like at this point to welcome Chris Cage to the presentation, and he'll be here to answer any questions relevant to the advice and referral process involved in this scheme. And if you have any other questions about London Rebuilding Society or the Healthy Homes, Healthy Lives initiative that haven't already been answered by Naomi and Neil, then please do fire those at us and we'll address those to Neil and Naomi as they pop up. So welcome, Chris, and it's now over to Q&A. So let's go to our first question.